Hey, Paul Jones, can you hear us?
Hi, Commissioner, I can hear you loud and clear.
And Tim Taylor, can you hear us?
Yes, sir, I can. Thank you.
Okay. We'll go ahead and welcome everybody to today's commission meeting. And as we do in all of our commission meetings, we open with a prayer reading or thought followed by a pledge of allegiance. We ask someone from the audience to provide one of the two. Is there anyone that would like to lead us in a prayer reading or a thought? The enthusiasm is not ending. Do you want to take it?
Yeah, you want me to do the pledge?
Yeah, I'll take the prayer.
Okay.
Oh, anyone could lead us in the pledge? Eric, thank you. You do the prayer.
Want me to? Our Heavenly Father, we thank Thee, Father, for this opportunity to come to this meeting and freely be able to participate. We're thankful for the rights and privileges that are ours in this wonderful land. We're thankful, Father, for those who are coming, and we pray that we will be able to converse in a responsible way. We know that there are many throughout the world that are not as fortunate as we are. We pray for those that are in harm's way when it comes to hurricanes or tornadoes, especially those in Florida as they're going through that now. We pray for those who are protecting us through the armed services and our military and also our law enforcement. And we thank Thee always in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Bill.
Please repeat the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, as we have done in the past, what we'll do is we will consider the first thing we'll do is a consent item. And how that works, we'll go through the regular regular agenda items first. Those that we've already reviewed and don't have questions on will consent to be approved, and those items will be moved to consent. The rest will be held for regular discussions. But after the consent portion is done, we'll go to work session 1 and 2, then go to the regular agenda. And once we finish the regular agenda, we'll go to work session 3. We're doing that because someone who's advising us on this had to be delayed to get here, so we will hold that person's position until after the regular agenda. And once we finish that third work session, we will then go into our closed session following public comments. So with that, let's go ahead and go review items 1 through 10 in the regular agenda.
Could we hold item number 8?
We'll hold number 8. I have no others. Is Commissioner Gardner on? Oh, Commissioner Gardner, can you hear us? I see you're popped up.
Yes, I can hear you. I was just promoted to panelist so that I can now talk. I'm good. I don't have anything else to hold.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll go 11 through 20. I understand 17 is to be continued 1 week or 2?
One's fine. Thank
1
you.
week. So we'll continue number 17 for 1 week. Any other items?
We hold number 19.
Hold number 19. Commissioner Gardner, you have any others that you would like to hold?
I have no other.
Okay. Then we'll go into 21 through 30. Are there any to be held here?
Could we continue item number 22 for 1 week?
Continue item 22 for 1 week. Continue to October 5th. Commissioner Gardner, do you have any others?
Nope, I do not.
Okay.
We need to hold number 27 as well.
I wondered about that. Okay. And we'll hold 27. With that, then 31 through 37.
Can we hold number 37?
Okay. And actually, there's a 42 after the closed sessions as part of the regular agenda. And I'll motion that we strike that item for now. There's some additional research that's being done on it.
Okay.
Commissioner Gardner?
You're kind of cutting out a little bit.
Oh, okay. We just finished going through 31 through 37, and number 42 is part of the regular agenda items that we're considering. I just suggest that we strike 42 because additional information is forthcoming on that.
Okay. And I had questions on item number 35.
35? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And that's it for the regular now consent items. We have, I understand, number 38 and 41 to be held with 39 and 40 to be stricken. Is that correct, Rob?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Strike 39 and 40.
Yeah.
Any other comments before we go over to Alice? Done?
We're good.
Okay, Alice, where are we with this?
All right, I have us continuing item number 17 for 1 week, which is October 5th, holding 19.
Excuse, I think you missed 8, number 8. Holding number 8.
We're holding 8.
Yeah.
Okay, I apologize. All right, I'll start over. We're holding 8, continuing 17 to October 5th, holding 19, continuing 22 for 1 week, which is also October 5th, holding 27, holding 35, 37, and then also 42 we're striking on consent, which is a regular agenda item. Then as far as closed meetings, we're going to hold as stated 38, striking 39, and 40, and holding as stated 41.
That's what I have. Any further comments, commissioners?
Striking 42.
Yeah, I said that before.
Oh, did you? Okay. Sorry, I was going
That's
in
okay.
order.
Okay,
Now we're even.
Yes, here we are.
keep this up. Who's next? Okay, so we finished that. We've moved everything to consent that we have no questions on. We'll have work session 1 and then work session 2, and then consider items that are in the regular agenda, and then do work session 3 after we finish the regular agenda. Is that enough? Okay. Mr. Moore, work session 1?
I think this is for Spanish Fork.
It is, yeah. Did you
I
want
think they're
to?
here in the front row, and I think you want to give them the time to
Yeah.
make their presentation.
That's my cue. Thank you, Commissioners. Thanks for allowing us to be here. My name is Mike Mendenhall, Mayor of Spanish Fork. Appreciate your service to the county.
The only greatest town in all the counties?
That's right. You're exactly right, Commissioner Sakovic. We wouldn't disagree with that whatsoever. My day job is a financial planner with individuals and businesses. This morning, as I'm sitting there thinking about what to talk about here, my client was an 80-year-old woman retired woman from Springville. And this isn't always the case, and you guys as commissioners are not immune to this either. But she mentioned how much she loves where she lives, and not just in Springville, which might be the second or third best city in the county behind Spanish, but the county as a whole. She mentioned how she loves seeing young families moving into Utah County. The dynamic advancements that happen in our county, the job opportunities, the family opportunities, the recreational opportunities that exist for her and her kids and her grandkids and her great-grandkids in Utah County. And that she had no reason to tell me that besides that's why she doesn't want to move anywhere as far as being retired and go anywhere else. And so I appreciate your leadership, your engagement in the county as a whole. I truly believe we are one of the most dynamic areas in the country, that we keep our tax rates low, our qualities of service high, and the opportunity here is as good as anywhere else to live in this great country. It also comes to mind of the part where government works very well. I think Commissioner Lee mentioned this in his opening prayer, that where our thoughts and prayers are with the people of Florida. I think there's opportunities that we'll see here in the coming weeks and months where government does a really good job of stepping in, helping each other in disaster and in our time of need. And so our thoughts and prayers are along with yours with the people of Florida in that area. We're here today. I'm joined by our professional staff of Spanish Fork City, our city manager, Seth Perrins, our city attorney, Vaughn Piquel, our finance director, Jordan Hales, and our economic development director, Dave Anderson, professionals in Spanish Fork that are focused on our motto in Spanish Fork, the home of pride and progress. So what we're going to introduce to you today and talk about in this work session is just more of an outlet of the home of pride and progress. The opportunity to, as I like to put it, plan regionally and still act locally. You guys do that well as a county commission, obviously with the cities and towns that are within your jurisdiction, and the different dynamics that exist between all of them, from the very north end to the very south end of our county. Spanish Fork sits in that south region, and what we're going to introduce to you today, I believe, fits that mold of us continuing the tradition that is in Utah County and in Spanish Fork of planning regionally what's good for our region as far as Utah County, but also acting locally as Spanish Fork City. And so I'm excited to let these men, specifically Dave Anderson first, talk about this opportunity in Spanish Fork, and available for any questions as well. And again, thank you for your service to Utah County.
Thanks, Mayor.
Mayor, thank you. Commissioners, thank you. I really appreciate Mayor Mendenhall pointing out this as an opportunity. I think it's a really unique opportunity. I say that having had the opportunity myself to work with a number of different developers for a really long time now, well over 15 years, to try to figure out how to do something significant in a part of our community where right now we really don't have anything. We don't have water lines, we don't have power lines, we don't have roads. And today specifically, we are here in the hope that you will help us understand how we can work with the county to proceed to potentially create a new redevelopment area in Spanish Fork. More specifically, it would be, as the state law now defines it, a community reinvestment area. And the real impetus for where we are now has been conversations that we have had with very reputable, capable development groups for the past several years. They've helped us understand that the market for what they would like to do in our community is strong, whether it's manufacturing space, warehouse space, distribution space, professional office uses, anything of that nature. There really isn't much space in our county, much space along I-15, space where a community has the type of utility capacity that we have in Spanish Fork to do the types of projects that people would like to do in Spanish Fork. Our challenge as developers have really helped us understand very, very well is that in spite of having capacity as a city, we don't have infrastructure in a particular area. So as we've come to better understand that, we know, like you do, that our tools in terms of being able to help facilitate what for us, frankly, is capital investment in Spanish Fork. As much as anything, that's what helps us as a service provider like you, as the county, be able to fund the things that we do day in and day out while keeping what we think our residents have as a really high priority, which is property taxes as low as possible. There are other benefits, of course, as well that come with the things that we'd like to see happen. Employment, in as much as it may not seem, in a county where the unemployment rate, I'm certain, is below 3%, might be closer to 2% today, that might not seem like a need. But frankly, we are here today to talk about something that's generational. We're talking about something that likely won't, really come into fruition for maybe 10 or 20 years. And we think it's very prudent and essential for us as a community to plan for the long haul. And that really is what we're hoping that the county will continue to be behind and to support as well. In terms of some specifics, I don't want to go much into the weeds. Again, today, we're just here to hope that, or rather with the hope that you'll help us understand what would work best for you as commissioners as we try to maybe add some definition to the conversation and ultimately get to the point where we can discuss the details of an interlocal agreement and the potential participation of the county in, like I said, a new CRA, as it would be. But timing matters. We've been having conversations with a handful of development groups, and I'll just use this as an illustration because it really, really drove a point home for me. There are people that would like to start construction on really significant facilities. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of square feet of non-residential space. They'd like to do that in areas where we just don't simply need roads, but we need really big roads, where we don't just need power, but we need the ability to provide large quantities of power. And while we absolutely expect the development community to do their part, we know that the needs are far too great for these companies to make the investment that's required and to carry the load entirely on their own. So in essence, we're here to talk about bridging a gap that exists between what in the private market people are ready and prepared to invest and that delta that then exists between that investment and the real need. Again, back to a quick example with the idea that people want to go now and the idea that people need large quantities of power. If we want to have transformers operational in 2025 to be able to support the kind of development that we're talking about, we need to order those now. And as a city, we're prepared to take a leap of faith and to work with developers and to place orders that potentially cost somebody many, many millions of dollars. But we are looking for support and help to justify that investment. Just as one example of, we can't turn on a dime. We need to plan ahead. We need to invest in advance of the need. And as much as anything, that's really what this is about. In terms of investment, dollars that are needed to build infrastructure could be deployed in a lot of different ways. To date, we've simply talked about, we refer to it as a post-performance type of a situation where we do expect the developers to front the expenses. They have to finance road construction, water lines, sewer, and all of those types of things. But potentially with a CRA, we could use increment that would be created to reimburse them over some period of time. And that is a model that works for them. Also, it may make sense to go out and borrow to get infrastructure ready enough that when a company comes along and they have a particular time frame by which they need to be building on, we're ready. Those are the primary ways that we've contemplated potentially using increment. As I said, we really look forward and hope to be able to work with the county and other taxing entities to do something in Spanish Fork that we really haven't seen done in Utah County before, which, as much as anything, is simply a matter of there still being some vacant land that's located where developers are ready to go to work, and us as a community having the ability to serve on a big scale. So I'll maybe wrap with that, just again with the idea that today we hope you'll help us just understand what's best for you in terms of next steps and that type of a thing. I certainly want to ask if anybody else wants to take it from there. But
Yeah, and the point that you're bringing out, David, I've 16 years since we moved to Utah County, we moved back. I watched my hometown explode from what it was to what it is, and it's still it's still breaking through the seams. And I've watched what's happening on the northwest of the county, Eagle Mountain, Saratoga Springs, Lehigh. I'm watching what's going on in Santaquin and out in that area there, and then west of it. It's just growing immensely. And so infrastructure is necessary and needed. And working with the prospective developers, commercial interests that help us move and provide jobs and homes and et cetera, and be able to come from A to B is crucial. So we're here to talk through what are some of the things you would like to see, and maybe we can respond to that as well.
appreciate that.
So thank you for being here, and also thank you for coming and visiting me in my office, offline, one-on-one, or one-on, I think there was 3 of you, wasn't there, or 2? 2, 1-on-2. Yeah, 2-on-1.
And they
There we
saw
go.
me too, so
Yeah, there's,
I think Commissioner Gardner.
and we had great conversation. I really do appreciate that. And you asked some questions, and I'm going to respond specifically to them in the way of, and we have already talked about them, but I wanted to kind of have that in this forum with the other commissioners too. I really like the direction that you're trying to go. I don't know how long you've been working on this, but it seems like it's been years. I mean, we've had this discussion before, and it's kind of morphed. And so a couple of things I wanted to point out that I really appreciate. I appreciate the fact that this is all within your city limits. You've been working with property owners to make sure that they're comfortable with what's going on. And if they're not, then you've held them off or out of this CRA. Those things are impressive to me, that you're going through those kind of motions and doing that. It's not one in which we have county residents in which causes a whole different dynamic for us to work through. So I really do appreciate that. I know that the time and the percentages have kind of morphed and changed from a year or 2 years ago. I think before that it was like 10 or 12 years, and then it was, the percent. I can't remember the percentages. They've changed now to 20 years, and I can't tell me again the 75, 70.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah, potentially. So those are under consideration. Maybe now for things that will give me a lot more comfort, which we have talked about, and that is that we're looking at an industrial site with this CRA, and for me, when I look at an industrial site, I love that because I know what manufacturing does, for our economy, for jobs. The spin-off rate is 8 to 10 times. I just love those kind of dynamics that can happen there, and I see what they do for the potential for the future. My concern is that we somehow, as we're going through the language of a contract between us entities, that we actually write down that we are going to eliminate and not have residential or retail because of the long-term capabilities of this, and because we're not doing it, on parcels, we're doing it on an area without having the ability to kind of go back. We're going to do it once. And so I would prefer that in our contract language that we specify that this CRA and the tax increment financing is not going to benefit residential high rise, whatever the case may be, condominiums, anything of that nature, and retail, so that we don't go down that road. That's been one where the commission in the past has it's here and there, but for the most part, we've been really gun shy of those two. And so if we keep it on the industrial side, I think that would be preferable for me, moving forward, so that we know exactly what we're doing. And if it's written in, it becomes long memory for us. And then when, things move around, we still have that in place. I like the post-performance. I'd like to, see how you kind of flush that out a little bit, because typically developers do pay for everything, and then in the way of roads and infrastructure, and then we just the county or the cities kind of acquire that. This one here is a little different components to it, and so I'd like to see the kind of the details of what that looks like. But overall, I'm very impressed with what you're trying to accomplish, and I think that it's needed and necessary as we look to go forward. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, certainly appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Seth Perrin, City Manager. I want to respond to one thing you said I think is critical to make sure that we're on the same page. I don't think we have any concerns with the thought you expressed of the residential or retail. However, in the industrial zones, as this area is rezoned, a lot of the areas, rural residential today, it'll get rezoned. Our general plan is for industrial in the area. Our industrial zone does allow for retail establishments to build there. Not that we can't stop them, actually. But I think what you're getting at, and the reason I want to maybe have this quick little interlude here is the intent isn't to incentivize any of those businesses. Let me give you, for instance, today in our development review, we had a sprinkler type company who is building a storefront as well as a back area. They will do retail sales out of there. It's possible and certainly likely that in some of the area where some of the infrastructure gets built, that somebody buys 3 acres and they put, let's say, a sprinkler shop there. That retail would happen. We wouldn't necessarily be able to stop it, but we wouldn't also be specifically incentivizing that particular use.
Right.
It's going to spin off because of that infrastructure potentially being there. So as you say that, I want to, what I think you're saying is you don't want us to use it to incentivize retail, and certainly not also residential. And I think we can absolutely agree to that. I don't know that we can stop some retail that might occur ancillary to what is in the area.
Yeah, and I think that we can probably massage this and look at it. If a retail component comes into play, there might be a different formula based, right? You're talking about they don't actually get the tax increment financing. We can kind of carve that differently.
Okay, I see what you're getting at. Okay, yeah, we can certainly have those discussions.
Because I think for a business model standpoint, they have their business model, they build it here, and they have their storefront out front, and you can't really just separate that and say take it across town. That doesn't make any sense either. So I don't want to de-incentivize somebody doing something, but I think that we can carve it in such a way that it would say, well, according to this area is...
Yeah, you're out of luck.
Yeah,
Get out
it's
of here.
not going to be quite the same.
Okay. All right. You can come back up.
Any other thoughts, Commissioner?
No.
Commissioner Gardner, do you have any additional insights you would like to ask or questions you have?
No, I was able to attend a meeting with them, and I was able to get my questions answered at the Mevo School District. Thank you.
Okay.
Just as we're negotiating, the one thing that I brought up is we're negotiating. I want to make sure that we're getting an administrative fee for administering the property taxes, and they knew that. So as we negotiate that, I want to make sure that's in there.
Okay.
Understood. Yes. Thank you, Commissioner.
For my part, of course, I live there, and I've watched the expansion happen west and north of the city, and it's continued to grow. And so I can see this as a natural happenstance. But again, I'm watching the entire county doing the same thing in all the other cities. So this is timely. Any other thoughts, questions, Commissioner?
No.
Nope.
We appreciate that. By way of a next step, do you have any immediate suggestion, or we can reach back out? As Commissioner Lee pointed out, this has been in the works for quite a while.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll admit we've drug our feet but we're at a point to where I think we're ready to jump in full speed. So
No,
I don't know.
Something else. Keep going.
Okay, that I guess is my last thought. But we don't necessarily need to get into that today. Just
Yeah.
whatever.
What we'll wind up doing is following up with you very, very soon on this.
I think the next steps would be on a contract basis, get something put together, right? And then bring it and probably give it to
And I
Rob.
think, yeah, I think that's what we would love to get some direction from you in terms of that working next steps, assuming that Rob is the attorney with whom we would be corresponding. And is it functionally better for there to be one of you as a commissioner that we maybe use as a point person that we can have, if there's a finessing issue that needs to happen, rather than coming to waiting for a meeting, is there one of you three that you would be comfortable with saying, hey, take the lead, that we can have some conversations, and that way we have the legal end that we can be working on, an individual, the commission, but not necessarily with all three, knowing that at some point we will be coming to this body, if more than once, at least one time going forward.
I think will happen, if I'm not mistaken, we'll have Vaughn develop what we've been discussing, finalize. I know Rob has been working with Vaughn, maybe work on the final nuances, and Rob can get with us to make sure that we all see that correctly, and he'll connect through Vaughn to you, and we
Right.
finalize it that way.
Okay, so is that the best course then? Just keep working through Rob, and if we need to have some commission input,
I would
into a
say
work
say
session.
yes, because that way you don't run into because Rob he talks with all three of us on a regular basis, and so I'm sure he'll float it around. And if it turns out that I guess what you don't want is you don't want to talk with just one commissioner and then get on an agenda, and then things are not that way with another commissioner, and then it starts going sideways. So I think that if you talk with Rob can talk with all of us on an individual basis, and those things can kind of float back.
And that way, through Rob, you have one voice instead of three different perspectives that may trip us up.
Okay, and then the last part, I think, to what Dave, as we've talked with you, some of the specific terms, I think the best course for us would be to put those all, as we've been discussing them, into that contract and start there. Are there any that you, at this point, would say you want to have other discussions about, so that we know that we want to specifically pinpoint any of the other terms? You've mentioned one in terms of industrial and retail. Of course, Commissioner Gardner mentioned the administrative fee, but anything else? Anything else cause concern?
The
for
only
you?
other one is I'd like to see it detailed out on the percentages and the years, kind of why and where how that's gonna play.
Yeah, and I think astutely you mentioned as we've been talking about this over time, the years have changed because the dollars have changed. Number one, the last year has not been kind to construction and infrastructure costs, and so as we look at the costs of what is needed, the years become critical in order to capture enough revenue to do what we believe would be required. And then two, some of the individual parties and players and projects have changed, where there were significantly larger entities that maybe could have carried more weight. So that's maybe the biggest reason why the numbers have changed as we've been talking. And I love how Dave said we've drug our feet. We haven't really been purposefully stalling, but just wanting to make sure that it gets right. And as you pointed out, Commissioner Lee, making sure that the area is the right area, and that we understand the issues. And now that we're ready to go forward, we want to make sure that, we want to now that we have all the information, we can go forward in earnest and carry this through the finish line.
And probably would want to know, the jail's down there and is in this area.
Correct.
And is there any effect of that? I don't know. It's just one of those, I don't know if there is.
Yeah, good question. And I think the jail that facility is surrounded on two sides now by roads, and fairly quickly we'll have a third road on the outside of the jail and on the outside of other properties that the county owns. So you'll be somewhat wholly contained, surrounded, I guess, by four roads actually, including Main Street. And important to always remember is this has no impact on existing properties as they are, only with changes as they may come. I think one thing important, one of the terms that was important in the discussions that we've had as we visited with you individually was we're looking for a base year of 2022. And so that'll be something as we start forward that we have the base year be this year. So we're able to, whenever it's triggered, that we have this be the base year so that that's how the world is at this moment. And we all know that. So that's our kind of our goal for the
Very
base year.
foggy, of course, economically. So we'll see. We'll have to adjust as we go along. But yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Commissioners, just as point of information, Rob Moore, County Attorney's Office. First of all, we have some property around the jail that's vacant, a large piece of property that we purchased probably 10 years ago now. Just be aware of that. I don't think we have anything on it currently, Richard, on that property. That vacant piece of property, do we have anything on it currently? Yeah. Secondly, with these, and just for Spanish Fork's information, we kind of have some form clauses that we include. For example, a certain percentage that the county hasn't historically gone past, and as far as their contribution to these kind of financings, admin fee as was discussed, also that the county is usually the last one in on these kinds of things, meaning that the school district's already bought off on it, or whoever else is going to be involved has already bought off on this thing. And I think there was one more I was going to mention. But we usually do a 75% max. I don't know what your thinking is. And I think
They're
the
at
term,
70.
or
They're
in
at
this
70.
case, 70 in this case, it's even better. Yep. And then we have a term max that we typically do too. I don't know if that was discussed with Spanish Fork.
We have discussed it. I don't know
Okay.
what your term max is, but yeah, we've talked about a 20-year term.
That is the max. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, excellent. If you have that somewhat at the ready, if you will, if you can send that to those specific terms to Vaughn, we can work that into the first drafting of what we have. We've got Vaughn coordinates with an RDA attorney that we've hired to make sure that we are following the RDA laws correctly. So he can work that into the initial draft of the agreement.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. I think that's it. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
I would say please stay for cookies afterwards, but we don't have any cookies, so you can go. See ya. We don't tell people that.
Okay, so presentation for Utah Local Governments Trust to discuss and consider Utah County loss prevention, including possibly of hiring a full-time risk manager.
Great. And my name's Stephen Hansen. I'm the CEO of the trust, and Ryan Hatch is our risk finance manager. And I just wanted to start by thanking you for your public service, for all you do. We've had a relationship for over a decade, which has been fantastic. We're here today to talk about some options and some things that we think can help strengthen the program that we have, and that can help financially as well. And Ryan's going to go ahead and talk about that, but I just wanted to, first of all, express appreciation, and also to Rob. We've had great conversations about these programs, and we met last December, and so we're ready now to talk about this next step. So Ryan, thank you.
All right. We're just getting connected here real quickly.
I like promotions. Those are great. Okay, so what? I might need the assistance of IT here. What do I need to do? Insurance is my forte, not technology. Ryan Hatch. Ryan Hatch? Oh, here we go. Excellent. And it's that one. Perfect. Okay. Let's see if I can. Okay. There we go. most valuable folks in America, IT people. So thanks, Steve, too, for the introduction. And I'll defer to Steve throughout this to make sure we don't miss anything. But and thank you to Rob for inviting us and having us take some time today. We're going to talk a lot about risk management. And from what we understand, there have been discussions already internally about a risk manager position, and hopefully getting that underway in early January 2023. I know HR has been interested in this, the attorney's office, and we've talked to the commissioners for several years about the importance of this position at the county. And so I'll just dive right in, and feel free to interrupt me at any time, and we'll just go through it. So just as a foundation, the core risk techniques that we see in the insurance world comprise these three following areas. First is risk avoidance. And that's when you simply don't participate in the risk. And we get calls all the time from our membership that say, hey, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. We're going to have the mayor jump out of a plane or whatever. And we say, don't do that. And that's simply just avoiding the risk. And we realize that there are certain risks that the county simply can't avoid. By virtue of the services that you provide, you have to participate in those risks. And so there are certain risks that we know are going to happen. The next technique is risk transfer, which a great example of that is simply transferring your risk to an insurance company or an insurance partner like the trust. We've been your partner for insurance and risk management since 2009, and on all lines of coverage since 2013. And so you've largely transferred that risk to the trust, and you can transfer other risks through contracts to third parties. But what do you do with all of that existing risk that you can't transfer, that you can't avoid? What do you do about that? And that's risk mitigation. That's reducing your risk, controlling your risk, preventing your risk. And so the one we're going to talk about today really is risk mitigation. And so with that, Steve, do you have anything that you want to add to that? Okay. Great. So two factors that I want to make sure to cover real quickly here so that we're all on the same page with what they are. We are pretty well known for using insurance jargon that may or may not be common knowledge. So the first is a loss ratio. A loss ratio is simply your claims dollars versus your premium dollars. So at the trust, we calculate what's called a pure loss ratio. It's just those dollars that are strictly paid for the claim versus the premium dollars. So our administrative fees, incurred but not yet reported claims, claims development, adjusting fees, all of that is outside of the claims dollars. And because of that, the target loss ratio for any one of our members is 60% or less. So in other words, we would expect to pay out 60% of your premium or less on an annual basis for losses. So hopefully that makes sense. And we look at the loss ratio on all lines of coverage, but we look really closely at the general liability. That's one of our key factors on general liability. Then we look at the workers' compensation, and there's a factor that's referred to as the EMOD. That's short for experience modification factor. And I always like to compare it to a credit score, because we understand credit scores. They can follow us around wherever we go. If we move out of state, we still have the same credit score. There's a bureau that manages what your credit score is based on your payments and your debts. The EMOD is like that. You can run, but you can't hide from the EMOD. Now, the difference between a credit score and an EMOD is that you want your credit score to be high, you want your EMOD to be low. So there is a governing bureau. It's the NCCI, which is the National Council on Compensation Insurance. And they're the ones that write the equation, set the factors, and determine how many losses you should have on workers' compensation based on your size and type of organization. So they would look at Utah County and say, okay, you're a local government, your payroll is this big, these are all the types of jobs that your employees do. Based on that, we would expect you to have this many losses per year, and if you eclipse that amount, your EMOD is going to go up over a 1.0. So that's really the target for workers' compensation, EMODS is a 1.0. If you go above that, so if you realize more losses than you're expected to have, then there is a surcharge that's factored into the premium. And that's industry-wide. So that happens all over the country, no matter who the carrier is. If your EMOD is below that amount, then there's a discount automatically applied. And the bigger the organization, the bigger effect that the EMOD can have on your premium. And we always like to tell our membership that the EMOD is really the most controllable factor. It's very scientific and it's very responsive to management and your culture, your safety culture. So loss ratio and EMOD. So now I'd like to highlight a few of our larger members that are more comparable to Utah County to see what their performance has been on loss ratios and EMODs, taking into account that they have full-time risk managers, that they have this position that the county is looking to get. So the first one we have here as an anecdotal example is St. George City. They've had a risk manager for many, many years. That person reports to the attorney's office. They're in the attorney's office. St. George, and these are all 10-year loss ratios. So it's not just 1 year. We're looking back for a good chunk of time. The loss ratio for St. George City is less than 5% right now. So they really do a phenomenal job. And I should point out that St. George is the 8th largest city in the state by population, but by exposure, by risk, they're probably number 4. So they provide all of the standard municipal services like police and fire and water and sewer and parks and rec and public works, but they also have their own transit district. They have their own bus system. They have their own huge $130 million power generation plant with turbines. So they provide power to the whole area. Golf courses and everything else. So the risk is definitely there for them, yet they perform really, really well on their loss ratio, and their EMOD for workers' comp is a 0.9. And that's actually the highest it's been for quite a few years. And so they're still below that 1.0 threshold. Their annual performance savings, because of the dedication that they put towards risk management, is about $700,000 a year. So they're definitely realizing the benefit of having that position. Then we can look at Unified Fire Authority. They service most of Salt Lake County for the fire services. They have roughly 800 full-time firefighters, and most of their payroll is just that, firefighting. So they have about 4% of their payroll is clerical. The other 95, 96% is firefighters. So we would look at them and say, you're just a great big, huge risk, just a bunch of bad risk, basically. But they are very risk management minded, and they do have a risk manager, and their ongoing loss ratio is 29%, and their EMOD is a 1.06. So it's just a little bit above the target threshold. And their annual performance savings is almost $500,000 a year. So just 2 more quick examples. Logan City, they are like St. George in the fact that they have all of the standard municipal services, police, fire, everything else. They also provide power. They have several dams. They do all the garbage collection up there in the valley. They have a landfill. So they've really grown. And they're probably our best example of a strong risk management partner. I mean, they really, really do a phenomenal job. They went probably 3 or 4 years straight, knock on wood, with no lost time claims. So they still had a few employee injuries, workers' comp claims, but none of those employees lost time where they were off work and we were paying their wages. The trust is paying their wages. And so they really have 2 full-time people dedicated to risk management and a team in the attorney's office. Their loss ratio is 19%. Their EMOD is 0.75, and they realize just under $700,000 in performance savings as well. And then Lehigh is the closest to you. You may know Scott Sampson. He's the risk manager there. They're a big up-and-comer with Silicon Slopes and everything else. 49% loss ratio, 0.67 EMOD, phenomenally low. They're realizing huge discounting on their workers' comp premium. And I should point out that they have not gone over a 1 on their EMOD for 15 plus years. So there's definitely no luck to this. It's all very strategic and intentional, and they realize about $350,000 in savings each year due to this. So this might feel a little harsh, but here's the contrast with Utah County. We have been doing your property and liability since 2013. Your current loss ratio is 313% with an EMOD of 1.35. And so what does that translate into in terms of dollars? In terms of dollars, that means that on liability premiums alone, the county's paid about $2.1 million in premium, and the pool, the membership, has paid out $5.3 million in losses. So there's a subsidy of about $3.2 million. And then the costs that I talked about, the adjusting fees and everything else that are not factored in, and that's about another $1 million that's not captured in there. So candidly, the trust has been upside down for a while, and we've implemented a few programs that have helped, and we're getting there, but we just need to keep going. So I'll just pause there. Anything else that you'd say? Okay.
As a point of reference, though, at this point, should the risk manager be in HR or in the legal office?
That's a great question.
Given what you've compared in the past or currently with other.
So I'll just take Logan as a great example. They hold theirs, and so does St. George, in their attorney's office, and they're having the best results, really. And so we feel like that's where, you know, the accountability is, that's where the clout is. And, you know, you want to hold this person accountable too, but we would say the attorney's office.
That's absolutely right. You know, both spots are.
Yeah.
Both areas are certainly great places to have them, but in terms of the most successful programs that we've seen, they're run out of the attorney's office.
Thank you.
Okay, so now if we look at the impact of your EMOD over the last 5 or 6 years, these dollars are not your premiums. These are just the surcharges that are loaded onto your workers' comp premium. So over the past 5 or 6 years, the county has paid over $1.2 million more than you should have, really, in workers' compensation. And we want to see that go down. We don't want the money. We're a governmental entity. We're nonprofit. We want to keep those premiums as low as possible. And so at this point, you're probably saying, okay, we're beating a dead horse. We get it. What do we need to do to right the ship? And we've started in some areas to do this. First of all, we really need to see a 40% reduction in losses. If you had that, you really would be operating where you should be based on your size, the size of your staff, what you do. And how do you do it? So we really have 3 core areas that we've looked at. The first one, of course, is hiring this full-time risk manager. We've given some premium indications to the county for next year that show no increase in premiums. It's really contingent on having this position in place, you know, by January. But if we can do that, we think you'll see immediate return on investment. The other thing that we look at is the Team Appreciation and Recognition Program, which is a form of an incentive program, and you're already doing this. You're doing this in the Sheriff's Department and potentially in other departments. The last time we met with the county, we were looking to maybe expand that to Public Works, and we'd like to see maybe the Health Department too, because there's a lot of claims in that area. So we would say continue to do that program and even expand it. And then the third thing is a lost chargeback. And this is something that we've touched on, but I don't believe that we're doing it at this point. And every one of those members that I shared previously, those examples that have the low loss ratios and low EMODs, all of them are charging their departments back for preventable losses. So they're either charging back the full deductible, and most of those accounts have the same exact deductibles that you have, or they're charging a percentage of the loss up to a cap. And so if you implemented that, you would see a 20% reduction in losses overnight, almost. And so we strongly encourage that. And these are things that would be monitored and managed by your risk manager. We have a loss prevention department. We do a lot of training. We work very, very closely with the safety officers and risk managers with our other members. But we realize and recognize that we can't be the risk manager for you. And so, but we would work very closely with them to implement safety initiatives and performance programs. And so if you look at your loss leading departments, your top 5 anyway for workers' comp, this is really where the claims have been, the claims count and the claims dollars. You truly would have seen many fewer losses here if we simply charge those losses back. Logan's been doing this for a long time. Frankly, they were unpopular at first for implementing that, but it's part of their culture now. Everyone gets it, and their loss performance is just phenomenal for years and years.
Let me just add one thing. I appreciate what Ryan's saying, because that chargeback program really reflects making everyone a risk manager, right? I mean, everybody becomes invested and wanting to bring those losses down. There's positive pressure, and it's good pressure. It's not a negative thing. It's not a penalty, but it just has a big impact. And it typically, and also, we talked about the size of the risk management department and where we might see them. An organization your size would typically have a department of risk management. It could, have its own department. And there may be 2 or 3 or 4 people involved based on the size. But again, that just is another little additive I wanted to throw in there. But truly, we think that the most effective programs we've seen, as I mentioned, truly are in the attorney's office.
Does Salt Lake County, you said, have 2 risk managers?
Salt Lake County, for example, has a team of people. They have a risk manager, and they have several others that are working in there. There's some assistants and things, and they're housed in the attorney's office as well, as is Salt Lake City.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, to Steve's point, they have multiple risk managers. These are a few other duties. If you were to ask, well, what does a risk manager do? They would handle the facility's risk assessments, safety training. They'd coordinate that for your staff. And that's where there would be some blend with HR, new hire training. There's probably already subrogation going on for county property that's damaged by third parties, but they would augment what you're doing there. Are these other members that I've highlighted and other trust members that really have a handle on their workers' comp claims and EMOD, they are talking to our adjusters multiple times a week to make sure that they're accommodating light duty, getting employees back to work. We have the luxury of looking at hundreds of members, all governmental entities in Utah, and quickly you can see who's, implementing the safety initiatives and risk management programs and who isn't. And truly, workers' comp is one of the clearest evidences of that. Of course, they would either chair or spearhead the safety committee and do instant reviews. We do those too at the trust. I've been involved in a couple of accidents. One was my fault, one wasn't. I went in, I reported to the safety committee. They asked me questions. They asked me if there was anything the trust could do differently to help me, if what I would recommend, if I felt like the accidents were preventable. It just brings accountability, and really it's not punitive. It's just part of the culture. And then, of course, they would work with your safety programs and coordinate between departments. Candidly, counties oftentimes are siloed because the departments are so big, they have their own budgets, there's a lot of elected officials, and so you'll oftentimes see these departments kind of running like they're their own entity. And so that can be streamlined through this risk management effort. And so what is the cost of a risk manager? I've sent Rob and HR several job descriptions for different risk managers throughout the state and the salaries of those individuals. Really for Utah County, for that position with salary and all benefits combined, we would be looking at about $200,000 per year. And so then it begs the question, what would our potential return on investment be? And so if we look at the surcharges right now to your liability premium, to your workers' comp premium. I mean, the workers' comp is almost $250,000 alone, and it's very, very easy to get that down. I mean, truly, this isn't like pie in the sky. We can get it down intentionally and keep it there for 2 decades and never go over a 1. This is very possible. But if we look at those dollars, those surcharges, and also at the safety dollars that the trust gives back for participating in our different programs, we really could conservatively say on the low end that you'd see a return on investment of $500,000 a year, upwards of 800 plus. And so that's, those are real dollars that we think you'll see every year, and you won't have to wait forever to see those.
And one thing I want to emphasize, a lot of times we talk a lot about dollars. As an insurance company, that's an important thing for us to make sure we have the money to, pay our promises of the future accidents. But more importantly than the dollars here are really the lives and the people that we're taking care of, because all of these injuries that represent these dollars don't happen, and we're able to send our people home safely and more protected. And so we want to emphasize that. We do talk a lot about the money, but really there's the other side of this that really could be 3 or 4x, this kind of a number, just based on the fact that we're keeping people safe.
Yeah. And I'm glad Steve pointed that out. I was on a conference call this morning talking about the hurricane in Florida. I have family that live there, and naturally my mind went to the property market and how is this going to impact the insurance world. So I'm glad that Steve has a heart and that he brings up what we all need to be thinking about, which is the morale and the safety of our employees and our citizens. That is paramount. So thank you, Steve, for bringing that up. At this point, we would like to answer any questions and ask maybe what we can do to help facilitate some of this change for Utah County.
Commissioner Lee, any thoughts?
Yeah, first off, Steve and Ryan, I'd like to thank you for sticking with us. You don't have to, and we've probably been one of the worst customers that you've had. I know I go back to the 2019 and 2020 where we were trying to implement programs and seeing if we could curb that, and everything looked like it was going in the right direction. It really did, and we saw that kind of that turn down there. And I thought, of course, the pandemic throws things kind of different when everyone's staying home, because then the risks are a little different too. But still, now I see it turning back, and I'm fully in support of doing this and doing a risk manager, because I think that it's needed and necessary. And it's not just that. I think we need to do all 3 of those categories that you have listed there, so that we can kind of move forward and probably take our team's approach and move it into the different departments as well, so that we can do it all. Because again, you stayed with us even though the pool has lost money over the years, that we've been there. And I don't even know why you stayed, but anyway, you stayed with us, so I just wanted to thank you for doing that.
I grew up down here.
Let me speak to that, and thank you, Commissioner Lee, for that comment. The reason that we're staying with you is because we believe in you. Effectively, we bet on management, and we believe that what we've got down here is great, and it will work for the future. And if we can just make some of these changes, we can do this. And the funny thing about it is I've been doing this for, more than 30 years. And this is, as Ryan said, within reach. This is pie in the sky. These changes can happen if we get the right infrastructure in place, if we give the right authority and power, and with your support, with Rob's support, and just with this is how we do business. And we would much rather see you take this $500,000, $800,000, $900,000 and spend it. You've got lots of places where you could spend it better than claims. Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Gardner, do you have any thoughts?
No, I'm good.
I was going to say insurance tends to put people to sleep. So.
I'll ask Rudy to pencil that in there somehow
Terrific.
for this current budget cycle, see if we can.
Since you brought that up, there is a request for a new position for risk manager from the HR department. So it's already in the list of requests that we'll be sending to you.
Thanks for
I remember-
confirming.
I
I
wonder
thought
if-
they would be. I just want to make sure.
Oh, for HR, and
Yeah,
I guess where,
so-
I mean,
where it
it
actually
we can-
houses, we can bounce.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
we
can
can put it wherever we want to put it, but
we can arm wrestle that one later.
yeah.
That's great.
You provided this information a while ago, and I appreciate that insight. So that helped a lot to get us mentally ready for this next cycle.
Well, we appreciate that. We recognize it's a process, and we look forward to continuing the partnership. It's been great, and thank you. Thanks
you
for
very
being our
much.
partner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Should we continue with the regular agenda since we have everyone here, or should we go ahead and have the expert come here and provide a brief on the separation?
That's your call. So,
Let's go ahead and do work session, the final work session that follows after the stricken number 42.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Brittany Thorley, and I'm with the Utah County Attorney's Office Civil Division. As you're all aware, but just for the sake of background, in December of 2021, you voted to separate the positions of county clerk and county auditor. And so over the summer, our office has just been going through the county code to make sure that the language in the code lines up with two separate positions as opposed to where it appears several times as the Utah County clerk / auditor. So I think I have a present, thank you. So this is just a summary of the text of the proposed amendments. And I just wanted to go through these. The first two slides will be fairly straightforward. These were instances in the code where the designation of which position should take that line was fairly obvious, either based on state code or the practices of the office. But I did want to present them and just give an opportunity for any questions on why those particular sections are affiliated with the auditor.
Totally get it.
Okay, yeah.
Commissioner Gardner, you have any thoughts?
Nope, I'm just excited to see the presentation and see what we've got here. I mean, state law is pretty clear on what the auditor functions are and what the clerk functions are. So I'm just interested to see how those pan out here.
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner Powers Gardner is exactly right. The auditor covers several areas, and most of these are tax related. And then if we can go to the next slide. So same for the clerk. They do a lot of administerial type things, a lot of record keeping, and then of course elections is a big part of it, of what they do. And so all of these again relate to their fairly obvious roles in the county. But again, any questions on these?
No, ma'am. I've none.
Okay. So the last slide, though, these are areas where there was some area of discussion. So we'll go through these one by one quickly. So 2.11.010 is just the repeal of the original consolidation. So that one's also fairly straightforward, but just different from what we've been going over. And you can stop me at any time if you want to talk more about these. So section 2.12.030 creates the Emergency Disaster Council. It's really fairly discretionary as to who you would like on that council. There's no state statute guidance on that. We had presumed somewhat that maybe you would want both positions on the council, but that's really your call. So we can write the code however you see fit.
So on that one, I know the reason why we have it there, because a lot of times there's money attached to it, on an emergency basis. But we also have an emergency management, that operations at the sheriff's department as well that we would be leaning on. And in some cases, that's where our command center would be located if there was something significant of that kind of significant level in which it was more than a local disaster, it was more countywide. How do we write that in? And so when you say Emergency Disaster Council created, how does that fall underneath one or the other in the way of clerk or auditor?
I mean, I would suggest it seems to be, it's more who do you want in the room discussing these things when an emergency comes? Who do you want to initially reach out to and have at the table for that discussion? That was my impression of this
so it's
person
not
code.
necessarily that it's housed in one office. It's just a matter of who we would like to have at that. Okay, got it.
Is that fair?
All right.
Okay.
I might just add on that, Paul Jones, I believe every elected official is on that council. So, is that right?
I think so.
Yeah.
So
So
commissioners, I
county
think the-
commissioners, the sheriff, the public works director, local health officer, the assessor, the recorder, the treasurer, the attorney, and then the clerk auditor is listed on there as a just one position, clerk auditor. And so,
Oh, I see. So part of this change is that we put them both on there instead of as one.
I think
That's
that's the
the
recommendation.
proposal.
Yeah, and that's
But that's
kind of the-
again discretionary and up to
Okay.
this
Okay.
council.
pretty much
Got it.
all of these changes are because the clerk auditor is listed as a joint
As a-
office holder.
yes.
And so we're separating it out and then just figuring out.
So I got
which
it
position
separated
of-
now because I thought we were looking at it was going to be housed in one or the other side, but this is just that their name is in there as combined, and we need to separate that and put two.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's really just more of a technical
Okay.
editing thing. Okay, so for the next one, then 2.15.010, that is just where we discuss how these positions are compensated. Again, our presumption was to keep the annual compensation the same for both positions, but again, that's ultimately up to you how you want to do that.
Right.
So I don't know if there's any comments on how it's written in here, or if that's something you want to discuss more fully later, but.
Well, we want to keep it consistent with,
Yeah.
elected officials, and so I don't see why. I mean, I know at times in the past, we've had one department that was lower than the other on the compensation, and we actually adjusted those in the past so that they were on equal.
So you'd like to keep that
So
consistent?
I
going
think it
forward?
should be consistent personally.
Okay,
Concur. Yeah.
that's how we will write it then. Okay, so then next, going to 3.04.020, tax sale administration. Now, this actually is something that tax sale is generally overseen by the county auditor. This was just an instance where, from a interpretive perspective, the person, it's referencing the contracting with the online vendor. And so really the language should be that the contract is with the county, not with the county auditor.
Oh.
And so that was a change that we saw that needed to be slightly different than these other changes.
Yep.
Okay, and then for the next two, they're really similar, even though they're in different sections. So we have single event beer licenses and then licenses for large public assemblies. And those are where bonds are made and paid so that if there are cleanup needs afterwards, right, the county has funds to draw from. When we asked the current clerk auditor who is actually overseeing that now, it turns out community development tends to take those. And so we were thinking that maybe the code should reflect that language as well.
I agree.
Is Public Works good with that? Okay.
They're doing it.
Okay. And then that last line item, just fee schedule, there was the only change there was that the May tax sale there's a fee listed, and that will need to be moved down to, they're listed by office, so we'll change that to the auditor's office as a fee for them. So that's all of the changes that we found. So I don't know if there are any other comments or questions, but we'll present this ordinance sometime in the near future to be voted in, and then it will become effective as of the new year when the new positions are formalized.
Near future as in end of October?
No, first year.
Well, first of the year.
I'm sorry.
I mean, you can
Complete it-
formalize.
Complete it, and
Oh,
we
yeah,
can vote on it effective 1 of January.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. No other questions?
I'll just comment, Brittany Thorley is one of our law clerks. She's a third-year law student at BYU, and she's done a fantastic job going through the code and finding every instance where we might have an issue or a conflict, and she's done a great work on this. And yeah, we'll put this on in October, and you can vote on it. And there'd be no problem with making it effective sooner or at the first of the year, because either way, it'll either refer to the clerk auditor or to the clerk or to the
All
auditor.
right, just be effective 1 January. But yeah, no, that makes sense. And you seem to attract all the bright
For the
ones
beer
to our
license
county
stuff.
every time.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and let me just echo what Paul said. Brittany's done a great job, and the other staff in the county attorney's
Yeah,
office, so thank you.
for whatever reason, you're attracting some of the brighter ones to work for the county. So thank you for doing that. Anything from a clerk auditor on this content, Taylor?
I think Josh would be happy to be referred to as two different people, so I think that's probably what's most
call him
Josh
acceptable.
A, Josh B?
Josh, and then
Or Josh
Mr. Daniels.
C and Josh A?
Josh the clerk, Mr.
So,
Daniels
do
the
you have
auditor.
any comments on the content of what she provided?
No, I think Josh is well aware of this, and there's no concerns on his end, as far as I'm aware.
Okay. I asked Public Works to comment on the physical layout, if we can get that done by midnight tonight.
Midnight tonight, but I'm not going to give you. No, we are underway with the remodeling that's happening on both the second and third floors. As you're aware, we're relocating the victims witness coordinators in the attorney's office from the third floor down on the second floor. That's the first step of the remodel. That's well underway. We've got demolitions all done on it. We're into the mechanical phase of it right now. As soon as that work is done, we'll move those folks down on the second floor. And then there's a fairly minor amount of work to actually do up on the third floor, removing a closet that's in place, cutting a door opening in, and a little bit of small remodels up there. It'll take a couple of weeks' time up on the third floor. We're anticipating being done early part of December with that.
That's pushing it way too close.
Hey, we like deadlines.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, maybe we need if you need to hire outside to augment.
We have a contractor that's working with us on it and doing a lot of the work, and then we're using some of our own in-house people as well. So
Okay.
we're using a combination.
I just don't want to use tarp for the new wall.
Nope, it'll all be done.
So early December.
That's what the plan is.
Okay. Commissioner Gardner, do you have any comments on this so far?
Nope, I don't, thanks.
Okay. Any other comments, Commissioner Lee? Okay, I'm finished. I think this work session item is now done. We will now go to our regular agenda. Write myself some notes before I don't forget, so I won't forget later on. We have, Commissioner Lee asked we hold number 8. Commissioner Lee?
Yes, I held number 8. Please come on up. I had some great conversations with the health department and the attorney's office. And they had me 3 or 4 to 1. I can't remember now.
We had you outnumbered for
Yeah,
sure.
you did. Good conversations there. We went down through. There were some questions that arose from it being approved and how the approved was. I'm confident now that we've worked through that process. At least for me, that I'm confident where it's at on the approval basis. We also talked about I know it's been over 400 vaccines that have been given out so far. Roughly.
The exact number I don't have with me, but
Just got that from the epidemic. They were saying that nurse practitioner was saying that there was roughly about 400 in our county, and the 13 is still is stabilized in the way of those that actually have that. And so as I was looking at the agreement and from our conversation, I think I got an affirmative that the health department was fine with the language that anytime there was changes, to this, because one of my biggest concerns was that we're signing off on something that seems a little open-ended, and so the thought was that they would, anytime there was a change, they would send an email around with the change that was being proposed from the CDC to all 3 commissioners. And even if it's a minor one, but they just send it around and they have updates, and that the commissioners then, if they looked at that and thought it rose to a level of that it needs to be discussed, then they would put it on an agenda item. And that way, we're not going back and forth with wasting of time or a lot of explanation. But if there is more explanation needed, we could always talk with the health department and say, well, I'm not sure what this means and what's going on with it. And so I feel more comfortable about that. Some of the things that we did talk about last time that still give me comfort, and that is that it is a voluntary basis. We're not going to be out there, necessarily promoting it or anything of that nature, except for just word of mouth and maybe some simple things, just that we have it. It's here. And I asked the question about what about the doctors and the clinics having this, and we're at the rare cycle in which the vaccine itself is not at significant levels that the doctor's offices or the clinics would even want that, because they don't see the need. We're not like in Africa or some other place where there's a high demand, and so they may not even want it. So it's available, and all we're doing is signing off and saying that we do have it. If somebody would like it, it's a 2-dose operation, and so they'd have to come back in 4 or 6 weeks. I can't remember the time.
28 days.
28 days. To get that second one if they felt like they needed that. So in going through that with the health department, I feel more comfortable in at least moving forward with the stipulation on there that anytime there is a change, that it would be sent to all 3 commissioners, and that we could review it and have questions, or then put it on the agenda if we felt like it rose to that level.
Yep, that's what we agreed to. And I should let you know that our EPI staff let me know that we do have an additional 2 cases. So it's now 15 cases in our county, which is still isn't a super high. I think the curve has definitely started to still plateau, and the effort is doing its job. It's public health intervention job. So any other questions?
Commissioner Gardner, do you have any questions?
Nope, I don't.
The only observation I would make is on paragraph 4 of the provider agreement. It's page 2. Organizations must submit the following information at least weekly, et cetera. The patients must be aware that this is going to be provided, and so they have to know that their personal information will be provided to CDC. So you're going to ensure that happens too.
Yeah, like with all of our, in all cases, we have to provide that data.
Okay. But the patient,
they're informed.
Not only provided, but the patient has to be aware that it's going to be provided.
Yeah.
Okay, that'll be part of some disclosure they'll have written in bold font then.
It's part of our, what is it called? For all of our vaccines, they fill out a encounter form that has that agreement in it. So.
Okay. That was the only question I had on that particular item then.
Okay.
All right. If no other questions, we have a motion?
Comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. Public comment, please come up. Introduce yourself.
So Aaron Davidson from Linden. 2 weeks ago, we talked about whether it was approved or under the emergency use authorization. And the health department assured us that it was approved. But upon further looking at the FDA site and CDC, there's a document under monkeypox and the medical devices that says the monkeypox virus, that was the period after that. So it says the Variola virus, which causes smallpox, is another type of orthopoxy virus. Monkeypox is a Variola, non-Variola orthopox virus and is generally not fatal. It typically resolves on its own treatment. The current outbreak in U.S. usually presents as a rash on the body, face, or genital area. Although there is a very low risk of death, there have been reported complications, including severe pain and times required in hospital admission. But then on another FDA release, released August 9th of 2022, It says today the U.S. Food and Drug Administration issued an emergency use authorization for the Genovis vaccine to allow healthcare providers to use the vaccine in intradermal injections for individuals. Okay, so that was under the emergency use to be intradermal. Now, the vaccine was approved in 2019, administered beneath the skin, subcutaneously. Now, according to the provider agreement, paragraph 15, it says effective August 15, 2022, vaccine allocation decisions by HHS will be made based on the expectation that vaccines will be administered to individuals over 18 years of age via intradermal injections. So if they follow the guidelines, they're asking the health department to follow the emergency use authorization administration of the Genovis, not the approved form of the vaccine. So they can say it's approved, but it's not being used in the approved way and the approved format. So if you go to the VARS database, and I went to the VARS database 2 weeks ago, and I'd updated it this morning. So as of today, so you say there's been about 400 vaccines administered so far, and in Utah, there are 70 reported, actually there's 71 reported incidences in the VARS database, VARS being the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, which is required in the CDC procedures. Now, 70 of those, let me bring it back up. 70 of those were stated that the vaccine was given intramuscular route instead of subcutaneous, both of which are wrong, according to the emergency use authorization application of the procedures. So, and they were all administered by public entities, no private entities. So it would be the health department administering these. And they're 70 out of 400, that's 17.5% of the injections of this vaccine have been done erroneously. And that's only the ones that have been reported. There's a Harvard study that was done on adverse events on vaccines, and found that only 1 to 10% of any adverse vaccine event is even reported. So we don't know exactly how many of these vaccines have been injected erroneously. So in that, if they're asking it to be injected intradermal, and they're injecting it intramuscular, and they're saying they should be injecting it subcutaneously, I don't know if this health department has really investigated how they should be implementing this procedure, and I don't know how much money the county is putting into this, but you're asking them to do something that they're not doing correctly as it is. So I would say that if they're going to do it, they need to make sure that they're doing it correctly and that any adverse event is reported correctly. Because as it is, if they do it as they're supposed to intradermal, it's not approved procedure. So it's an experimental procedure. And any person that is injected with this in the experimental process, which is required by the CDC procedure, it should be governed by the Belmont report, which is covered under the HHS guideline of Title 45, Code of Federal Regulation 46. Because it's a biomedical experiment upon human subjects, because it is not, the way they're asked to be doing it under this guideline is not approved. It's only authorized by the emergency use authorization. So I would question any money that's going in from the county that's being used to conduct a biomedical experiment on human subjects.
There's no money from the county.
No money from the county. Okay. Is there any oversight of the county over the county health department to make sure that they're injecting it properly and that they're following procedures as outlined by the CDC, and that any adverse event is reported to the VARS database?
That's the state health department.
The state health department.
Maybe Eric could elaborate a little bit more what you just touched on.
So first, let me just say that we have administered the vaccine subcutaneously until the Centers for Disease Control. We spoke about this in order to spread the vaccine because of the scarcity. Instead of a 0.5 ml subcutaneous, they spread it out. It can now reach 5 people per dose, or vial, I should say, because it's 0.1 ml. It's kind of like if you've ever had the tuberculin test, like for tuberculosis, where they make the small bubble under your skin to test for tuberculosis. That's how to spread the vaccine out through this authorization through FDA. We did change to that when it was, again, a part of this agreement to stretch the vaccine to as many people as possible throughout the United States and the world for this right now. So, and we, to my knowledge, haven't made any errors in the administration of how we've given the it subcutaneous, so we follow the standing orders of our medical director, who is up to speed on the ACIP recommendations as well as all of the updates to this as well, and our staff does that with all of our vaccines. So we monitor that, we're careful, and we ensure that we follow the science.
Okay. Are there any other public comment? Okay, none online. All right.
I'll make a motion that we approve the provider agreement with the stipulation on there that if there's any changes to the CDC website or updates to that all 3 commissioners are in that loop and given that update as soon as possible.
And the patients are fully aware.
I'll second that motion.
And I'd like to include that patients are fully aware that their information is going to be sent to the CDC as well. So include that as well. Okay, we have a first and a second motion. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that passes 3-0. Okay, we're now on to number 19. Approve and authorize an agreement with Crossroads Court Services to provide information to Utah County Sheriff's Office pursuant to HB 28.
Okay, this one's a simple one, I think. Let me get to it really quick. When I was looking at the agreement, it says this agreement shall take effect on July 1st, 2022. And I mean, sometimes we do back, but I'm just wondering why we would leave that in there, if we needed to leave that in there, or should it be as of after we vote, if it is agreed to today?
Great question. HB 28 requires that beginning July 1st, 2022, they start reporting that. We were a little bit behind with getting these in place, and so these providers will then provide the information that they're required to provide backdating from July 1st of 2022.
So we will get something out of it.
Absolutely, yes.
From July 1st
we will.
forward, and that's
Yep.
okay. That was just the question.
Great,
I had.
thank you.
Commissioner Gardner, do you have any additional interests or questions on this item?
I do not. Nope.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve and authorize the agreement stated in number 19 on our agenda.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor say aye.
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 That passes 3-0. 22 has been continued. We're now down to item 27 to approve property tax actions, including recommendation letter number 7 of this year.
Adam Beck, Utah County Attorney's Office. Before we get going, I wanted to just make a mention of one item under item 27, the Natasha and Peter Jordan application. Just before this, I was able to speak with counsel for the family, Jerry Rainier, and he wanted to have the opportunity to speak on this matter. However, he was only apprised of this morning. And I would not have any objection to continuing this to the next recommendation letter item. And so I just wanted to bring that up to you and see if you had any concerns with doing that.
I have none.
I have none. That was one of them on my list. And so I would love to have, are you him?
If you want to hear from him.
And so you're okay with that, to continue it until then? I don't have any problem with that
Yeah.
personally.
So we'll continue
Fine.
that particular one on that list.
I'm fine with that too.
Okay.
And we'll continue that one week.
So the first one on, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Art.
That'd be October 5th.
Yep.
Yeah, we began at 2, but soon after that.
So the first one I have on my list is Advantage Excavating. And he refers to some medical issues that were going on there. I just wanted to kind of go through the process. And look at that one. Let's see.
This is the one with the severe medical concern that came up.
Okay, so he was, it looks like August 12th, 2021 for 50 days. Then a bunch of surgeries, and so of course I don't see anywhere on here where the county's made any mistakes or anything like that. That's not the issue. I'm looking at it in the sense of what we would be willing to look at. It is, wait a second. Oh, that's the value. Okay. I was off on that. I was wondering on this one with the commissioners if they would have any interest in the penalties in forgiving or abating the penalties and interests on this.
I would support that. Yeah.
Yeah, I could support that.
Okay. It's not the tax. The tax still needs to be paid. The penalties and interest would roughly be about $800, little over $800 that would be abated. And if that can be supported, I'll move to the next one.
Yeah.
Okay. The next one's Courtney Robertson. This one was a conflict one. There seems to be the again, it doesn't look like there's anything that the county has done on an error basis, but there's a claim that the taxes were paid twice, or at least assessed twice, and so that one kind of jumped out in front of me, and I just kind of wanted to have an explanation of what happened there and what's the story with the taxes of being allegedly paid twice.
Jeannie Bowen, Treasurer's Office. When it says it was paid twice, both the lessee and the lessor both claimed on their filings. Does that make sense?
They claimed.
They both claimed the same personal property.
They both were claiming the same equipment, yes. On this one. It says. Not on this one. Oh, that's on this one. So no. Oh, so this was not the one that was actually filed twice, though. I think that is an error on this request and allegations then, yes?
That would be my understanding.
Because the filing twice was on intervention in vain.
Oh, let's
The
see.
Courtney Robertson should not have said that it was
Oh,
filed
I'm sorry.
twice.
I'm sorry. That's my mistake. He claimed that he does not owe anything.
So Courtney
And there was,
Robertson.
yeah,
Mhm.
that's the difference.
Is the COVID
Sorry.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah, Courtney had COVID, was closed for COVID because had, a spa, and COVID closed a lot of those kind of places during that time period.
And his claim is that he there's nothing that he owns. Everything he has is rented or leased.
So he's arguing that the main owner of the property and the personal property should be paid by the principal.
By the owner.
Right.
That is
Yeah.
the claim.
That's the claim.
But that should be between the property owner and the renter. That is not what we decide. That would be their agreement.
And so, but we are making a decision that they are the ones that need to pay on the personal property.
We bill the business owner. The business owner needs to work it out with the property owner to say, hey, in their agreement that they're leasing the building, if they are then leasing the equipment, and who pays. Does that make sense? I can explain differently if that does not make sense.
To me, what you're saying is that the lease doesn't own the property or personal property, so it should be exempt from paying personal property tax. It's the owner of the personal property should be paying it. We could at least provide that statement, and that the owner and the lease work it out.
And this is real property that we're talking about, though, right?
It was
Paulette
both,
Stetzer
actually.
with Assessor's Office. No, this is a booth rental that we're discussing, okay? She rented from a salon, then ended up closing. Because the salon was closed, she no longer was able to operate. Unfortunately, due to no contact with our office, her account was estimated. So that is where these questions come in. She's
Okay.
stating that I don't own what you're stating I own. Well, we're basing it off of a list that was provided to our office.
So the estimated was on the personal property based off of other salons or other entities that are of the same.
Similar like, yes.
Yeah, so this is a two-part request. The personal property and arguing that.
She's looking at 2 years,
Yeah,
Commissioner.
and the second
Yes.
part is they shouldn't pay this taxes because they were forced to close due to COVID
Correct.
restrictions.
So that's what the appeal is for the 2 years.
Why does she put down on here, I don't own it, I rent it?
She's referring to her space.
Right, okay.
But if we don't know that, they would be estimated based off of a small, similar, and like business.
Yeah. Did you look to see if she was under the $25,000, or do we know that? Those 2 years?
So the 25 was probably not at that time. It would have been more 15.
15.
Okay.
And 15.8. And because it was an estimate, we do not know if she truly fell below. Had she filed, there is probably a high probability she would have.
Could we reach back out to her and have her clarify that? And maybe just postpone this and so we can have clarification on what, at least some sort of documentation on what she had on personal property during those 2 years. I think that would be, at least for me, that would That would help.
Yeah.
Is that all
Yeah,
right?
that would be fine, yeah, so we can defer action on that one for
Okay.
now, maybe, if, would a
Defer
week
that
be
one.
enough time to do that in?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Let's just do, I'm happy to do that. Commissioner Gardner, do you have any comments on this particular item?
Okay, the next one
Sorry,
I
my
have,
phone wouldn't come off mute. Yeah, I don't have any questions on that one.
Okay. Next one then?
next one's Holdaway.
Keith and Joey.
I'm wondering if it's okay to just do all the personal property and then we'll let the real property come up. Holdaway is real property. Would that be okay?
Yeah, I don't know if there's.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I didn't actually mark them down on. So the ones I have is Holdaway, Intervention and Vein Center,
So we can jump to Intervention Vein Center.
and then I have the Orem Orthodontics. That's personal property, and then the Greenbelt one we already deferred that one, and then the Pharma Medic. Is that?
And then can
is that
I
one-
also
Is that
add
personal or is that?
the Pharmatech
Yeah.
is personal. The ones with the numbers that are only like 5 to 6 digits will be personal. The
Okay.
9-digit will be real.
I'll memorize that for next time.
So, okay, well, so why don't we, well, I guess it doesn't really matter. I mean, if we did the Holdaway one,
may-
that would be real property and the rest would be personal.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Perfect. So let's jump to Intervention Vein Center. So they are the ones that were claiming the double billing. And so they lease a lot of their things. So they had claimed things and the lease company was claiming things. So that is why they are claiming the double billing. Does that make sense?
That does.
Wait, say that again, because
So they are leasing equipment
Right.
from another company.
right?
They claimed on their filing that equipment, the company that they are, the lessor, is
Yeah.
also claiming the equipment. So in a matter of speaking, it is a double bill because both companies claimed on their equipment list.
Okay. So who pays? Or is it under, or what, I mean, they obviously, somebody paid because there's,
That depends on the agreement between the lessor and the lessee.
And if that's
And
not
in
clear,
this
we'll have to get
case-
that cleared up too then.
Correct.
Yeah.
And in this case, it should have been the lessor who owns the equipment. And it just so happens that both parties were paying taxes on this same piece of equipment. So that's how this occurred and why she's asking for a refund.
so the $4,177.18 was paid twice?
Correct.
And the one that has, and the individual that shouldn't have paid it is the one that is appealing this right now.
Correct.
So then would it make sense that we actually abate that one?
Yes.
Okay. Then I would recommend that we abate that one.
Abate that one. Hold away item. Commissioner Gardner, do you have any additional questions or observations on that particular one?
Okay.
Okay.
And then the Orem
The Orem Orthodontics.
Orthodontics.
Is it a county error? No, it was their first time filing. They did reach out to try to ask questions. They had emailed and things. So I suppose it would be kind to do a, best interest, but it is not technically a county error.
So yeah, thank you. And the question I have is, they must be over whatever the amount, we're in 2022, so it's the 25,000, right? So they have,
So they were estimated over.
oh, they were estimated.
They were estimated. They did not actually file.
Okay, but they're probably claiming that they were under that. Yeah,
They claim they are under because he claims he is a traveling dentist, and so he does not actually own all of his equipment.
Okay.
I can see that, yeah.
But also on that note, we requested ownership of the equipment and we were not provided that information. So to our understanding, we still don't know who owns the dental equipment that this traveling dentist is using. So
Well, he's got to respond to that. Otherwise we can't we can't ascertain how to move forward with this without.
we were unable to obtain that information. So.
How many times did
can-
we ask? Just at one time or?
Well, they made several calls to the office. Yes, they may have spoke to different clerks at times, but you're going to get the same information. So,
Sounds like the personal property is his and he needs to be taxed on that item.
can't say.
I would
So-
probably recommend on this one that we hold it off and reach back to him and say that the commission is inclined to abate this, but we need to know who owns that equipment. And if we don't know who owns that equipment, then we're not inclined to abate it. Is that fair?
Yes,
Sounds good.
more than fair.
Commissioner Gardner, any additional insights on this one?
Nope, I think reaching back out to him is a good idea.
Okay.
Okay, then the next one we have is then the Pharmatech.
Yep.
And they are claiming a lot of mail theft, and they've improved, they've even done their thing. They are very good at filing. So I can see, best interest, they have a good track record. They already technically are getting, for lack of a better term, penalized because of their, the estimation increases something, plus they get the penalty. So I would be inclined to wipe off the penalty or something just to be, best interest of because of their history, their good history there.
Yeah, the penalty and the interest and.
That's where I was at too, and I think that came to 5,000. Let me get to it again.
Is that
5,595.46.
Is that includes the tax as well?
Nope.
Just the penalties and the
No,
interest?
just penalties and
Yeah,
interest.
I would recommend we debate that.
Okay.
Commissioner Gardner, any other thoughts on this particular one? Okay, next item.
I know those were the only questions that Commissioner Lee had, but can I, with the last two accounts that are on there, may I also say something on those?
Absolutely.
Okay, so on regional finance, they are fairly similar to the Orem Orthodontics. It was also their first time filing. And, them trying to reach out, they kind of were filing late and such. And I'm wondering if we would be willing to, for consistency's sake, offer them the same thing as we are offering Orem Orthodontics.
For my part, yes.
Sure.
Reach out, ask them to give us a full-on thing and see what we're willing to do. And then also for Prixis Manufacturing,
Praxis.
however you pronounce it. I have one other document to show along with that. Can I? So they were under the understanding, because they were audited. They have two accounts. This specific account is an in-name only type of account, because they have a second account that is where the holding of the equipment. They had reached out saying, hey, they had spoken to the state auditor. The state auditor then emailed and would let us know that that really is a zero equipment. They were under the impression that that's how that would work, and so it would still be zero equipment. And so when their estimate actually comes in as an estimate of, $110,000 worth of equipment, they were surprised and they understand they did not file. Maybe we could work with that because they are paying taxes on the account that is actually holding that. Does that make sense? Paulette has.
With that, as Jeannie stated, they were told that they needed to file stating all assets were owned by their other entity, which is running out of the same location that this business is located. With that said, because they do have 2 EIN numbers, they are by law required to file separately. And that is per the Utah State Tax Commission.
Okay.
So what do you recommend them with this then?
So I think there are 2 recommendations. So I'm so sorry. The assessor's office, because it's an estimation stand, that would be the recommendation from the assessor's office. My personal recommendation is to work with them, and I would either knock it down to assuming they have maybe supplies, but they did not file, so they would get like their $25 penalty. I don't know, do $30 or something. I would personally knock it down, knowing they are paying on their other account, and knowing that it was a 0 because the state had let us know there was nothing there.
So when you say knock it down, you're meaning
The equipment. I would have the equipment, instead of the estimate being 110,000, I would have the equipment be very nominal, like a $500 equipment or something like that, to reflect the state showing us that it was 0 with their audit.
Okay.
But both answers are correct. It is.
Of the 2, which you pick.
Well, I mean, I would pick mine because it's me. But her answer is very accurate and very this is law, right? I mean, estimates stand.
Thank you for supporting.
You're not saying
I
she's
do
the wiser
support
one,
this.
are you?
What?
You're not saying that she's the wiser one of the 2 of you, are you?
I do tell everyone in my office that I'm the smartest one in the building, so
Okay.
a little conceited. But both answers are good. It just is.
So you're saying bring it down to $500 worth of property.
I would say, they probably have supplies or something for this business, right? So when they're entering the equipment from the audit, there would not have been anything technically to add to that audit because the auditor is saying there's nothing there, right?
Right,
And
which
so-
I like your answer too. What's your suggestion again? Could you remind me?
So Paulette's suggestion is to keep the estimate because estimates stand. Right, and they do. Estimates, you are technically not wiping estimates. You are able to abate taxes.
So abate what we think is not there.
Yes.
That's what you said, basically.
What makes this a little difficult for me is that this entity knew they were recently audited. They knew very well that they needed to file, and yet, again, as you read from their appeal, whatever the situation may be, caused them not to file. Not sure where they got that understanding, but per the audit, they were specifically told, and I
Is it like
confirmed this with.
your first high school dance and you're not sure how to start? Is that what it sounds like?
No,
No comment.
I know how to start. I know how to dance.
Well, with that, making this
It's
more
getting
complicated than
along with
necessary.
the other person, your dance partner, right?
Yes.
Except we get along great.
Dozens
She's
of
awesome.
answers to that one. I don't know. Maybe we just, as she suggests, because what we're doing is keeping the spirit of law is the minimum is 25,000. But if she says that if it's a brand new startup and they may have nominal,
So they are not a brand new startup, I don't believe. They are not.
They lease their equipment from their other entity.
Correct.
Correct. Now you're getting me turned around. So the complication is that we have two entities in one building owned by one person or two people, however many it is.
That is correct.
This entity owns this entity's property, and so what we're trying to do is identify this entity's actual holdings and assign to this one what they actually have on hand.
That is correct, which is what has been done per the audit.
Right. This particular one or both of them?
The one on
This
your
is-
left is the actual holder of the equipment.
Correct.
Okay. The one on your right is the one that should have filed stating all equipment being used for this business is located at this. Unfortunately, it didn't. And so we have several thousand accounts within Utah County, and I can't sit and watch each account roll as they run through the mass program to identify who should be estimated and who should not. Until it gets down to the wire where we're down to a few hundred or several
Right,
hundred in this
right.
case. So,
Well, if we're trying to abate this particular one on this side, I'm more inclined to do that.
Yes.
okay.
And you're saying abate 24,500, assign 500 is what you said?
I would think that they should just, I mean, I would reduce the amount they owe, right? How much you would like to reduce would be, I mean, that's subjective.
Got it, okay. I'll put a note on this one for next year.
What do you want to do?
I'm inclined to just go ahead and abate that one, as you said, drop it down to 500.
When you say 500 though, are we talking amount or are we talking equipment? So like when I said 500, I meant like knock their equipment to supplies to $500, not the amount. Are you meaning the amount or the equipment?
Because the equipment belongs to
estimation.
this entity here,
The
correct?
equipment belongs to the other entity.
Yes, and so we're just focusing on this particular entity
So then the
here.
$500 equipment amount, which would then make their payment due about like $25 to $30.
Yeah. That's the one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Don't come back anytime soon. No,
You guys are
you
gonna
did well, Jimmy.
curse me.
Thank you both for that.
Thank you.
Any additional insights on that, Commissioner Lee?
No, I struggle with that one, but I'll,
So I'm not the only
That's-
one?
if that's the way you want to go.
Okay, Commissioner Gardner, do you have any thoughts on that?
I've got a lot of thoughts, but I'll keep them to myself.
Okay, we'll have you disconnected in 2 seconds then. Okay, any others? What's the next one on that?
So I think that's all
That
that I
complete
have.
yours?
That's all. I don't, those last two weren't necessarily mine.
That pretty much covered all I had. Commissioner Gardner, were there any other properties that you had questions or wanted to
And
comment
you
on?
wanted to talk about the
No.
hold away matter? The hold away matter?
Well, that's not on this one though.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any on this one.
So,
Wait, it's on this item. We had just finished all the
oh,
personal
I see what you're
property.
saying. Yes, okay.
this is the
real property.
Yeah, the real property one. Yes.
Hey, Alice, would you remove that pump because it blocks people's faces? on
Sorry,
it.
I thought we were talking about personal property.
Yeah, we
I think
just
we-
reviewed all
those
the
are-
personal property, and then the hold away matter is the remaining real property item.
So I usually go back and on the agenda, item number 27, which we're on, all the documentation is gone. So I'm not sure what happened
Number
to it.
27.
I usually like to refer to
Um,
the items.
Go here. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Whoops, just expand it.
Okay.
And if I recall, this matter has been continued from a few months ago. One of the reasons why you wanted to continue it was to give them an opportunity to apply for Greenbelt.
Right.
And also, I think you may have had some questions about Greenbelt, and Diane Garcia was not available at that time. And so I'm not sure if those same questions that you still have, but she would be available today if you did have those questions.
Okay. Well, this one's got a lot of moving parts to it. So some of the questions, that have come up is, has this been in production? Has this not been in production? And then also, who owns it? I know that's being disputed, that there is some dispute over that. And then I know that there was a settlement offer on this for 40, I think it was like 4,700. I can't remember now. I used to seeing it on this
4,600.
4,600. The reason why I think that we wanted to pull it into this arena is to see that if it was back on Greenbelt, which it is now back on Greenbelt in the sense of that it has met the production level. Then I wanted to see if what we'd want to do in the sense of allowing this to move forward and and this has been going on for quite some time, and trying to get past a lot of the issues that are there and try to wipe it and go forward instead of dealing with tons and tons of legal issues that are there. I know that Robert's here to speak to it as well. And so maybe he could be more articulate on the reasoning for the owners to bring it forward to us today.
Excuse me. Thank you. My name's Robert Fillerup. I'm an attorney in Orem. I represent the Holdaways. We were here on June 22nd. This is here pursuant to a Section 1347 application. The commissioners may recall that under Section 1347, the commission has somewhat absolute discretion to adjust and basically do whatever it wants. The statute says, let me read it. I passed out a copy. It could be in the file, but I'll just remind the commissioners. It says that in the judgment of the county legislative body, the best human interests and the interests of the state and county are served. So that's your criteria for determining whether you ought to do something or not. Last time we were here, Commissioner Gardner wanted to know if it was in Greenbelt, and I represented it was because I thought it was, and that was a mistake. It was not. Taxes had been being paid, and I thought they were being paid on a Greenbelt basis, but they were not. But Commissioner Gardner recommended that the Holdaways apply for Greenbelt. They did that. The application was approved, and it will be in Greenbelt in 2023. The Holdaways will pay the taxes that have been assessed for 2022. I don't remember the amounts, I've got it here, some $345 or something like that. I can't remember the dollar amount. And so our recommendation is, because we're requesting an adjustment from 2020 backwards, that we use the 2020 valuation. We go back to 2010 using that valuation, because what happened was there was a rollback. It's a little confusing what actually happened, confusing to me in 2010. And there was a $20,000 tax assessed. My letter explains all this, but we started meeting, ironically, with commissioners back then, Commissioner Ellertson and Ivy and Anderson, trying to get that resolved. Went on and on. I advised my client not to pay the taxes for a couple of years times, but then the Holdaways decided my advice wasn't right, and so they commenced paying taxes off and on, and they've paid the taxes since 2000. I think they paid them in 2000. I don't remember. My letter gives you the dates, but 2017, 18, 19, and 20, I think they've paid the full assessed tax. What we want is an adjustment. Initially, this rollback was about $20,000, but because of interest and penalties, it's now $70,000. And so we're asking for that to be adjusted, that the Holdaways pay what they would have paid had it been assessed at the 2020 valuation clear back in 2010. And my calculations show that to be $4,600.
And you're, so that you determine that number by the assessed value on a greenbelt status?
No.
On the
current assessed value.
On the current assessed value.
On the 2020 valuation, which is $24,800.
$24,800. I see that right now.
But there were taxes paid in the meantime, so you have to deduct those out. So you have to take 24,800 times all those years, times the rate, subtract what was paid, and I think it came out 4,000, I've got it in my letter, 4,500 and some odd dollars. I rounded it up to we rounded it up to $4,600 to make the offer of settlement. Calculations are on page 3 of my letter dated April 28th. By the way, I just noticed on the agenda that it references a letter from Mr. Beck of 2022-7. I have one of 2022-5. I don't know what the current recommendation is on this parcel, so I can't address that because I don't have that document. I believe it's the one that you've been reading off of to go through, but I don't have that and don't know what he recommended.
Okay.
What's the date of that 2022-7? You have that in front.
I don't have that.
Commissioner, I don't think Adam Beck heard the question that was posed to him about the 2022-7 letter.
He was saying
Mr.
he has the 2022-5, but he doesn't have the 22-7 letter. Recommendation.
He's requesting a copy of it.
Oh, I can get him a copy. The recommendation is the same.
Okay.
It's the same as the -5.
The same language?
Yeah.
If you recall last time I was here, I suggested that that was an incorrect analysis, legal, in the July or the 2022-5, Mr. Beck recommended that deny this request with the finding that no legal or factual basis is shown to grant the request. No error on part of the county is shown. The statute doesn't require the showing of an error on the part of the county, nor does it say anything about a legal or factual basis. It simply says that the commission, again, I read you the criteria, if it finds that it's in the best human interests and in the interests of the state and the county, it can adjust whatever it wants. It can waive the entire tax, it can waive penalties, interests, do whatever.
May I make a statement here? So that wasn't necessarily my legal analysis. That was mainly just for the commission's information. I know that in the past you like to know if there's been some error on the county's part or if it's not. And so I wanted to just make that clear that in this matter that there wasn't county error. But I did make the recommendation, and you can see that on the recommendation application that I did make the finding that no legal or factual basis is shown. So I just wanted to.
Yeah, no, I got it. Yeah, I understand on both parties there on that one.
And of course, the legal basis is section 1347 on its face, and the factual basis is what I've set forth in the letter and in the application.
Comments?
So, go ahead, Chris.
So the request is to substitute the 24,800, which would be the 20 and 2021 value. Carrie McConnell has done a quick workup of what that would look like, and it includes the rollback by substituting all of that. and it comes in at $4,431 with no penalty or interest, which is very significantly no different than the 4,600 that we've been looking at. I'll present that to you. Either one. I'll let you fight over it.
You only have one?
Needless to say, we like that number.
So that is using the value. This has been going on for a long time. The first adjustment was made in 2009, and it's referenced with the Whitney, Ellerson, and Anderson when they were here. That was a Board of Equalization adjustment, and there was a question raised at that time about ownership. So that's the first adjustment. The second adjustment happened again in 2016. There was other discussions that happened. At that point in time, that's when the 24,800 number, and it was actually classified from residential. We actually moved it into an ag classification at that point. So this has been going on for almost, I want to say 2005 is probably the first time. Yeah, 2005 is the first time we talked. So
the question I'd have is, assuming that we accept this, the 2,600 or the 4,600, would you keep it in? Would you keep the parcel in Greenbelt and in production as a deferment still for at least the next 5 years? So that, because there's a ton of history here on this, and so that, because if we just accept the 4,600, then tomorrow your owners could say, well, we're just going to sell it to a developer. Not that you would, because I understand where the property is, but you could just sell it to somebody else. So how would we keep it in the Greenbelt status so that the rollback is not, so we keep it tightened up?
let me answer this, and I can probably get you out of it.
Well, I think if you granted the 4,600 and then the owners decided to develop, they would have to pay a rollback tax, just like any, there's no guarantee.
The only way we could do
This is
that.
only adjusting prior assessed taxes. It doesn't have anything to do with future taxes or any commitment. I think they fully intend, there's this ownership issue.
Right.
If I may take one moment to give you a little background. The Holdaways and I and the attorneys for the state lands and the BLM and a whole bunch of us met last, and I apologize, I think it was Wednesday or maybe Thursday, I can't remember the day, on site, took a tour, spent hours talking about the issues. The main question is the Wakara Trail and how. And by the way, Association of Mountain Lands representative was there. We were all talking about how can we move forward with this trail with this ownership issue pending. And we didn't make a whole lot of progress, but there was some discussion about let's move this along as fast as possible. So part of this problem has been the Holdaways can't file a quiet title action against the United States government unless they've paid all the taxes, at least under one of the criteria. So we've got to get the taxes issued. They've got to pay those so they can then make their claim that they're the actual owners of the property so that they can enter into the agreements to get the trail. I mean, it's a domino effect. And so we're trying to get the taxes resolved so we can make our claim of title without any cloud.
So based on that, the worksheet that you have in front of you includes the rollback, which they have agreed to pay based on an adjustment to the market value during those years. So the very bottom is the 5 years of rollback based on that 24,800. So we're not really abating. I know the policy that you're talking about. We're not really abating here. They've actually agreed to pay the rollback based on this adjusted value and then just move forward with Greenbelt in the future. So there would be no abatement per year. They are just agreeing to pay for it.
We'd still have that 5 years
But the 5
moving
years in
forward.
question here would be from 2009 back in that period. So those 5 years, if they were to roll it out today, now they've got back in Greenbelt, we would take the most current years and roll back, not the ones in question.
Got
So
it.
there would be no abatement.
Okay. Okay.
Chris, you had a question on that form. What about tax sale admin fees? What is that question?
It doesn't include any of that. So the number you have in front of you is no interest, no penalties. And I assume the penalties would probably incorporate some of those things that you're talking about. We've kept pulling it off of the tax sale because of this ownership issue. And the reason it has the lower value is because of the ownership issue too. What is the market value of something that you don't truly own? So we've been making quite a few adjustments since 2009 over all of these, over this property.
So you were saying not to consider tax sale admin fees.
That is up to your discretion. I'm just saying the number in front of you does not include that.
Okay, because I don't know what the admin fees would be. And
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
I would just inform there's $760 for the admin fees.
So that would make that roughly $5,200 altogether.
If you included that in your decision, that would be correct.
$750, right?
Yep.
So that'd be 5,181.
Right about what I said. Yep, good.
That would be 5,181.61 with the admin fees added on to this amount.
I don't have that copy. I don't know if you have
Can
an
make a
extra
copy
one.
for him.
That's the only copy we had, if you don't mind. Yeah, Mr. Filler.
Got a camera?
Yeah.
And the number was
5180.
And it was 750
for admin fees.
admin fees.
So this is the rollback. That's everything.
right, but he's giving me a,
No penalties or interest. They're included in the
but you included
4,000
interest.
to get up to the 51.
That was that would be the settlement amount.
So the offer is 51,
Yeah.
Right.
51,
82, I think it was. It's right there on the
5,181.
page.
it's not on that
61. I didn't write it on there.
Oh, you did not?
Yeah,
No,
it's not
I-
red.
Here, I'll write it on there. Bring it
Oh,
over here.
sorry.
I'll write it down.
I'm trying to figure
That way
out,
it's official. It needs to be notarized by Alice.
trying to understand the origin of that number.
Oh, so it's the 4,431.61 plus the 750.
Sale, tax admin.
5,181.61.
I assume I get a chance to check the math, but assuming it's correct.
Check it. I'd check it.
I would have to consult with my client. Can we, if it's approved, subject to my client approving this number, we're done? Would that be,
I don't have any other questions on
You
it.
think your client's not going to take that?
I apologize, say again?
You think your client's not going to take that?
I mean, I
I'll tell you what. How about if we hold off on this one until the end of the meeting, and so you have a chance to go talk with him? Give him
Well,
a
my
call.
clients are out of town and unavailable.
Oh.
They're not here today. They couldn't even be available by phone, so
Okay.
if I told you where they were, you might change your mind, but they're on a houseboat on Lake Powell, so without phone service.
Make sure you don't tell us that.
So I couldn't even talk to them today.
Mr. Fillerup, could you accept the offer on behalf of your client, subject to review with your client?
Yeah.
Could you accept the offer subject to contingent or contingent upon review of your client?
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll accept the offer. If they don't like it, I'll make up the difference myself, I guess. How's that?
Thank you.
You just charge them extra.
I'll accept that number.
Thank you, Mr. Fillerup.
It's only $14 a year.
That's all I was gonna charge them.
I'd be surprised.
Okay.
All right.
So $5,181.61 would be the amount they have to pay, and that will resolve all prior taxes. They'll pay 2022, and we move forward with 2023.
Right. It won't, that one's not, yeah, I don't think that 2022 is on that
Yeah, because
calculation.
22 is not finished.
They
yet.
have to pay
They have to pay
2022.
2022.
They will pay 2022 because that's not due yet.
And
then
that.
they'll move forward under Greenbelt.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay.
All right.
You need a copy of this?
We probably should have a copy of it.
Chris
So
can make
that-
a photocopy.
Adam, take a picture.
You got it?
I'll make.
Okay.
Oh, it's on top of my letter. So on my letter is my.
We'll let them take care of that. Move on. What's the next property item? Any others?
I think that's it.
If I could touch on probably the remaining one, the Bellevue Assisted Living item. So we recommended approving this one.
Right.
There was just some ambiguity in the language. What happened is in 2021, our office by mistake started, it was residential, but then we by mistake moved it to commercial. And so what our recommendation was is charging the difference between the commercial billing and so having them pay the residential amount, even though they were billed at a commercial amount, and then moving forward, they're going to be residential. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. What I didn't want is, my fear was that it was going to appear as if we were asking you to change the status to residential, and it's not something we can do here. That would be more of a BOE thing. And so I just wanted to make that clear. Any questions on that?
You're fine with leaving it?
I think it's okay now with that clarification.
Okay.
Okay.
Adjust the taxes as if it was on qualified as a residential property.
Correct. Adjust the taxes as if it was in a residential, as if it was a residential property.
Okay. I'm good with that.
Ready for a motion?
Commissioner Gardner, any other questions you have? We'll go ahead and suspend the rules. I can second the motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the tax actions on agenda item number 21 with the discussed and stipulated conversation that we had.
Okay, and I can second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 2-0.
Aye.
Oh, there we go.
Wait, I was able to join, so I voted yes.
Okay,
as well.
good. So that passes 3-0.
Sorry, it's been cutting out a little. It's been cutting in and out a little bit, just so you
Okay.
know.
Okay, so we got that as passes with 3-0. Okay. On to agenda number 35, Commissioner Gardner. This is one you asked to hold.
Yeah, I just had questions. I hadn't, I know that there had been a request to add someone to this division in their budget plan, but I didn't know that there was a plan to add someone prior to the 2023 budget year. So I just basically wanted to know, what is this position going to do? How is it funded? With what grant? Is it an ongoing grant, et cetera? Because I saw it pop up, but I didn't know that it was coming prior to maybe the 2023 budget season.
Thanks, Commissioner Gardner. This is Eric Edwards, Health Department. We have a grant that we've had for over 20 years. It's called the FEP grant. And we had an increase in funds, and it started July 1 of the current year. and I believe it's around $775,000. And we have the opportunity to bring this person on now, if that is approved in the staffing plan by the county commission. If we need to wait till January, we can do that too, if it needs to go through the budget process. But to answer your other questions, we're in the third year of a 5-year grant, but historically this grant gets it repeats every 5 years, and we've been fortunate to get it for 20 years, and we anticipate this ongoing. This will be a grant-funded position. And what the person will be doing as a social media coordinator, we rely more and more on social media for just about all of our programs now, for the main 3 platforms of Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and to promote our programs and services in a cost-effective way. We also lack the ability to have our current staff monitor. We can have upwards of over 100 or 200 media posts that need to be responded to in a timely way, and this person would be responsible for that. And also, we have recently started in a very efficient Google Business platform. Each of our divisions has a Google Business platform, which is an innovative way for us to be able to engage with the public and meet needs, answer questions, and respond to electronically. It prevents phone calls coming in, and it can help us also. And we can do it by division, which is more efficient than just having it come to one central location. So this person would be responsible for that, also generating our content, because we want it to be consistent and making sure that it's not violating any of our media rules and things like that, making sure it's clear and consistent information, all being managed by one expert. And so that's the goal for this specific position, and it would be fully funded by this grant, the FEP grant. Did that answer your question, or did I leave anything out inadvertently?
No, I think that's good. I mean, I think I still do have a few more questions. I would feel more comfortable if we could continue this for a couple of weeks, and I could maybe look into it a little bit more, look into the job description and see what we have going there. I mean, does it need to be a grant person, or is there maybe a social media firm that can give us more consistency that we could hire, that we could use for the grant? And I mean, I do have a few more questions, if you don't mind waiting a week or two.
Okay, let's
and then I could maybe meet with you and get those questions answered.
That sounds good. Let's continue it for a few weeks and have those discussions.
So I'm not hearing 2 weeks.
But I'll make a motion. Oh, yeah? I was thinking 2.
So that would be October
If I can make a motion
12th.
to continue the item for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and second to continue through October 12th, item number 35. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, that's continued 2 weeks. Okay, number 37, approve Upper Whittemore Plat G subdivision. Commissioner Lee?
Yes. My only question.
Okay.
We went through a pretty extensive water. I was going down through the staff recommendation, and the only thing I saw on number 5 was the staff that the county commission approves the Upper Whittemore Plat G subdivision being an amendment to lot 17 and 18, and it was subject to the following condition. There was one condition: no new dwelling sites are created. I was wondering if, since we went through that process when it comes to water, there was a document I believe that we were wanting people to be aware of. Should that be a part of something that they are subject to?
So with our building permit process, we require everyone to sign that document, so it's done during the building.
So
permit
so I just want to make sure that's done, or that is in there.
Bryce Armstrong, Community Development Staff. If you recall, that ordinance had an exception for those existing dwellings. And where these
that's
are
right.
existing dwellings,
Yeah.
they will not be subject to that.
Because all we're doing is taking an acre or so off of one parcel and adding it to the other.
Yeah, I think they had a septic
Yes.
redesign or something, so they needed to swap some land between the two.
And the two, there's two dwellings, one on each end.
That is correct.
And they would be, you're right, you're absolutely correct that it would be existing in that case. Okay. Never mind. I will make a motion if we're ready for that.
I'm ready. Commissioner Gardner, did you have any additional?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm ready to second the motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Upper Whittemore plat as stated number 37 on our agenda.
And I will second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 That passes 3-0, number 37. Now we have any additional public comment?
Commissioners, before you go, this is Rob Moore. Before you go to closed sessions, I've had a request on number 17, which you approved a continuance of 1 week on consent. I've had a request to make that 2 weeks
2 weeks?
instead of 1 week.
So number 17 continued to
That's the attorney's
October
policy.
12th.
Yes.
Alice, you have that?
It was
So I'll amend that. I'll amend that motion to, on number 17, to continue that for 2 weeks instead of 1 week.
I'll second that.
And all in favor, say aye.
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 That passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close out this public session. Thank you, everyone.